we going? We're good. Okay, cool. So this is Ryan Morini from the Sam Proctor Oral History Program. Today is May 1st, 2019. We're sitting here with members of the Farmers Aid Benefit Association. If we could just go around and everyone could state the name for the camera.
Desmond Walker.
Collins Duncan.
Shadow Cook, Steve.
Natalia Cook.
Gloria Jenkins. Gloria Tyson.
Mary Dennis.
Watoma Johnson.
Lillian Boston.
Lavanda Cook.
Barbara Henry.
Vivian Fire.
And so
Okay, and now I can appreciate that, the names that were given for the camera's sake. Now I'd like to go a little deeper than that. I'd like for you to give some maiden names, some family names, and address it in such a way that your family is identified through your lineage. Because I know, we have the Cooks, the Collins, and them. So if you tell who you are and tell which family you represent. Desmond Walker representing the Duncan family as well as the DeBose family. That's my grandfather's father and my grandfather's mother. Okay, Mr. Cook, your family, well, Natalia, you can help with that.
From the Cook family, my father was the ex-president of the organization, and also the follower of the ex-president of the organization, and for 32 years. And this is my son, who's taken over also as president of the organization.
Very good. And Ms. Gloria?
Well, yes, I'm the chairman, program chairman. My mother representing Ruby Jenkins. I don't remember how many years.
But Jenkins would be the
But
name.
Jenkins would be the name.
Very
Yes.
good. Yes, thank you.
Okay, I'm Gloria Boston Tyson. My grandparents, Huggins Boston, Mary Boston, were members for years in the organization, and my father and mother, Arnold Ferguson and Joan Ferguson, also were members of the organization.
I'm Mary Dennis, the son of Reverend Dennis, who's a former member here for a long time. And I represent the Dennis, Johnson, the whole community. We're all in on one side, my daddy's side, on my mother's side. The Johnsons, the Browns, the Davises, and that's it.
I'm Watoma Johnson. I became a member of this organization some years after my husband, during the time my husband was a pastor. He was a pastor of this church for 30 years or more. And so I am a member. And these are my family members.
My name is Lillian Boston. I'm married in the Boston family. My husband is Marcus Boston. He has been the president, vice president of this organization for years. And
His mother?
his mother is Reverend Mary Boston. She was a pioneer, one of the pioneers of this organization. She's been here a long time, but she's deceased now.
Young lady?
I'm Lavanda Cook. My grandfather has been the past president, and then my dad, Latalio Cook, is the current president of the organization.
And you're what generation?
I'm the third
Third
generation.
of Cooks.
I'm Barbara Henry. I am a community member. I have allegiance to the Cook family, and as well as almost every family name that has been called. I grew up knowing about Farmers Aid. I knew Mr. Joe Duncan. I knew his son, Joseph, who was a member of Farmers Aid. I grew up in the Greater Fort Clark Missionary Baptist Church. Mr. Wyatt's relative, Henry Camps, was a member. I always remember him coming with his white jacket, his badge and his navy blue pants when it was time to have the meeting. We didn't get to listen sometimes in conversations that adults had, but I learned what I could about Farmers Aid as a child and growing up. And then when I became an adult and wanted to be a part of an organization that did things to assist, because I always saw them helping the sick, the needy, anyone who needed anything. And I remember hearing stories about how it was founded and why it was founded, and being a close-knit community and family. And everyone, as was said earlier, we're related. We all came from Adam and Eve. And so when you start to track it down, but I mean, I'm sure I could find family lines with everyone that's sitting here in this circle today. And so to hear the history, I thought it was a great idea. I think it's a wonderful idea because a lot of what we have is oral, because as I said, as youngsters, we were not able to be a part of some of the conversations. But when I became a member, Mr. Arnold Lee was always doing things to help any and everyone. My uncle, the fish is what attracted me because they always had meals. We had song, we had prayer, but we also had good food, good fellowship, and they never looked down upon the younger ones, which I was young at that time, and they taught us and they showed us the things that we needed to do. Miss Ruby was the program chair. Vivian and I just got told that we were going to be a part of the program committee, and we tried to do, and we're still trying to do the things that will bring honor and respect to what our foreparents put in place a long time ago. Vivian, and I shouldn't be saying because she has to talk, but she was invited to do a health fair. And she came several years, and then all of a sudden, she was a part of this wonderful organization, just like me.
Okay, well, one next thing I want to do is talk about those people who have been officers, and we started mentioning that a little bit before, but I want to hear more about, and I'm going to put a pin in that, I want to hear more about Mr. Duncan's farther back than, your parents, I want to know more about the grandfather, your grandfather, and I want to tell you to talk a little bit more about the involvement that Mr. Cook had, and I want Gloria to talk about her mom's involvement, and I certainly want to talk more about Mother Boston, who was here when I came in, such a dynamite little fire lady at 101. So we have a lot to tell, but the next thing I wanted to do was maybe just to talk about the officers as we remember them. And I know Mr. Cook was an officer. LaTalia is now the officer. LaTalia, you want to say anything about taking over from your dad as president? Keeping it in the family?
Well, it's a lot to oversee. For one, I would say I would rather, even though I've known about the organization for years, I would call myself relatively new because I left here at 18 years old and went into the Air Force. And so coming back here, I came back for a couple of years, and then I was out in Houston for the past 30 years. So coming back here and getting back into the organization, it's more as trying to cram a lot in, learning what each of the groups do, as well as trying to oversee to make sure that everything is being accomplished. So it's a task that keeps you busy as well as working. So I've tried to watch my dad while he was president for the 2 years before I got nominated and voted in as president. So I'm learning, still learning, and I'm going to be learning as we go because it's a continuing learning process, as well as dealing with the different people that are here, as well as those that we plan on coming in, and dealing with the personalities of each of the individuals so that we can become one unit and one mindset so that we can move on. And so that's
Thank you. I think that's a big part of who we are. Now, I wanted Mr. Wyatt to talk a little bit about his family, the background that brought him into here.
Well, my father was a minister when I was real small. I heard about Father's Day meeting. And he used to ride a horse over to the meeting whenever they had the meeting there. I didn't even think about it, at the time. But as I grew down through the years, I became more into it. And then my father, at the time when this was started, I'm gonna go back to the history, to help one another.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, if his farm, when he got ill, the other farmers goes over and take care of his farm or his crop until he's got well, and the ladies did the same thing for the females. And on down through the years, as everything got stronger, and I came to find out on my daddy's side, and also on my mother's side, almost every name in this area, I was related to one of them. On the Duncan side, that's my grandmother's side. And on all the rest of the Johnsons and things from my father's side, Mose Johnson, which is your mother-in-law or whatever, and all the rest of them on down, the Davises and all those.
Great. Laura, you mentioned something about your mom. You want to tell us a little bit more about her association? If you can remember any.
I can't remember a lot. I just remember that she was always a member. I was going away as well for some years. And when I came back, that was just one of the things that I wanted to do. I talked to Mr. Cook and I talked to my mom, and I thought, we had been in this for so long and the same people were there. And it was just, like you said, the fellowship, the food. It was like one big family. And that was something that I wanted to be a part of, and I joined it.
And Miss Ruby and Joanne Boston Ferguson were always instrumental in making sure that everyone had plenty. If they, and I remember Joanne and I talk weekly, and one of the things that we always talk about is how when someone was in need, then that other family would go. They didn't ask, or they didn't set up a menu or whatever. They took food and they cleaned the house.
Let me stop you, because that was my next question to her. To ask her what she remembered as a child of seeing those actions going on that were part of the
I remember my grandmother and my mother always talking about whenever someone was in need, if the mother was sick, they would go over and help wash clothes, take them food, whatever they had on their farms, they would take them that food. It wasn't exchange for money, but just in exchange for whatever help that you could provide for that family. So whenever they saw someone in need, they would just go help. You didn't have to ask. There was no phone, so you didn't have to ask, but word of mouth got around that so-and-so was sick. So, okay, they send their children. It's not always the parent that went. My grandmother had 12 children, so it was all dispersed different places wherever they could go, and she would have food for them, vegetables, meats, or whatever they needed, and she would send for them.
But now, were these farms all over Alachua County, or located in just one geographic area?
I think just located in geographic around this area.
Around this area where we are
like
now.
The Cooks stayed, right, the dirt roads during that time, so it was right up 71st and back around in there. The Johnsons stayed across the road from them, and they were in there. And there was some other people that stayed near 39th Avenue, so it was just dirt roads that they could just go around, and the bullets and all. So it's generally in this area.
Okay, so what part does Liberty Hill play in the organization of the Farmers Headquarters, the church itself? Was this a meeting place?
It was a meeting place, yeah.
Okay.
And I think they, at the time, during the schools, a lot of them went to the school here. And then when they had like the anniversary, then they were rotated around to different churches. It was 4 o'clock that was involved. And Second Morning Star was involved in Liberty Hill. And then I remember as a child when they would just fix their food, that particular, you had 11 o'clock or 3 o'clock, whatever the service is. Everybody had foods in their cars. We did not get sick or anything at that particular time.
You
just went.
That was the best.
You just went from come on, get something out of my box. Come get something out of my box, and you just went around. Yes, went around to each person's, and got some of their food, and you just stayed out all day long until the services and stuff were over with. Yes, and my grandmother was a minister, and she was very instrumental in prayer and preaching
Now,
and
who really wants to talk more about, because we are not getting out of here until we talk about this strong, independent person who, when I came in, she would give us what for every meeting and pray, and it just warmed my heart. It just warmed my heart. So I want somebody to talk about Mother Foster and her being a minister and her impact, not only on this organization, but she had an impact on the church, on the whole community. So I don't know it.
I can't tell about all that Minister Boston did, but I can tell you as a young child, we always came to visit to bring what we had, okra, peas. That's what we grew out in our area, in our field. On Saturday mornings, we had Bible study at her house. And again, as I said, we were given our chores to do after our Bible study, and the adults taught. And we played, but it was always in a Christian fellowshipping session. And she always, I can just remember, she always had kind words, encouraging words. She didn't bite her tongue in delivering what was right or wrong, but you always felt good when she finished talking to you. She was a strong, my dad just absolutely loved and adored, as am I sure, the entire Cook family. And my dad was McKinley Cook, and he was a deacon at Fort Clark, and Uncle John L., we were members of Fort Clark. But it's just right across State Road 26. They used to ride through, the wagon ruts are still visible. And that's how they got. It wasn't the roads that, Fort Clark Boulevard was not in existence, but they got there. I can remember, I knew, of course, my cousins, the Duncans, because of the profession that they were in, but my uncle, Richard Doty, and Joseph were very close. We talked all the time. Miss B, I knew the DeBose part of the family, and they were out from the Nebo area, which is where the Doty part of my family came from, which is my mom's side. The Cook is my father's side. And so they always made sure that you knew family, that you worked. They didn't, as Gloria said earlier, they didn't come in and say, well, what can I do for you? They picked up the broom. They picked up what they had. They didn't have mops like we think of mops now. But whatever they scrubbed the floors with, they got down on their knees. And when they took food or whatever, everybody had, or everybody didn't have. There was no big U, little I, and all of those things. And so that's what I remember. Reverend Mary Boston was just a pillow to all of us, and talk to young people, encourage spirituality, encourage education, and just the fellowship of being one and taking care of one another. It doesn't mean that we all will always agree, but we agree to move forward and persevere for the good of everyone. And I don't know the history, and I can't talk about the history, and I've been trying since we knew that this was coming to think about, but I've heard about the people. I remember Mr. Coop Bullard. I remember Miss Georgiana. I remember Miss Susanna from across the branch. It's across 26. And I remember them all, Miss Gertrude. I found programs with Miss Gertrude White on there. I remember them as little girls, but as I said, some things about the history I don't recall because we could not be directly involved in, which is why Alberta, Cousin Collins' sister, she shared so much with me as an adult because we worked together all the time and we were both educators, and she filled in blanks for me of people that I remember them talking about and how they were related and what they did in the society. Mamie Long, who was the daughter of Squire Long, a minister, a well-known minister in this area, always had out peanuts and bell peppers, and we didn't have gatherings that we didn't have that ear of corn being displayed and talked about what it meant and talked about, oh, well, we didn't grow corn, but Wyatt and them would bring us corn and they would get our okra. And at this time of the year, it was fertile on that side of the community, and on this time of the year, it was fertile on that side. So there was always an ongoing exchange. I remember my cousins remembering, looking forward to us coming from the country because we were going to have crates of peas and crates of okra, and we were going to have some homemade butter and fresh milk because we had cows. We had our own smokehouse, and I know that Farmers Aid, those were all things that they did. And as I said, Henry Camps, I called him Uncle Henry, so that But we weren't allowed to just be in the immediate vicinity as they talked. Miss Ruby and Joe did the cooking, but we were right there on 43rd Avenue raising money to help students go to school, help a family when they got burned out, things that needed. We didn't, depend on incomes because we didn't have that to give in those ways. But they came together and made sure that it happened.
Let me stop you a minute.
Okay.
You're so rich with knowledge. We almost need to do you by yourself.
No,
and
I have to have my help because I need you see me looking.
Here's what I need.
Yes.
I need what you're saying. We need it very badly. But I want to have the whole group together, for this type. So I want to get as much group.
Absolutely.
He will do individual sittings. But I wanted Mr. Duncan to tell us his branch. Because I want to know, Miss Rivers and your brother Joseph, and those people who belong to this community and have given so much for so many years. I thought you might want to mention, Mr. Duncan, something about that.
And Miss B, his mother, who was just a quiet
He'll do all of that.
a quiet storm.
He'll do all of that.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
If I may.
Yes.
So my granddaddy has always been quiet.
Yes.
But he's going to, he knows,
Yes.
a lot. And if he doesn't mind, and I know he always defers to me.
Sure.
But he certainly knows much more than I. So
Yes.
I'm sure I will learn some things from what's taking place here today as well. But
Yes.
he's generally a quiet man.
I know that. He's always been a quiet
And he's
person.
93. But at the
Oh,
same
isn't that beautiful?
At the same token, Granddaddy did want to hear a little bit about Big Mama and Papa and I was 39.
Hard-working farmers in the community.
Yes.
Church goers, and of course, they did whatever they could to support the church and various organizations.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, my father kind of let it go a little bit after we've been in business. He wanted to follow us around on funerals and let some of his other work that he used to normally would do, follow us on our funerals and so forth. So we had to let some of the work go, but generally he did all he could to help his family and his community and the organization.
And give us the names of your brothers and sisters, Mr. Duncan.
My brother
And sister.
Joseph Duncan,
Mm-hmm.
sister Alberta Duncan Rivers, and I have a younger sister Serena Duncan who just recently passed.
I see, yes.
And I'm Colin Duncan.
Yes.
The knee baby.
The knee baby. Now, yeah, so we know what the knee baby means. And so when you all began your funeral service, what year? Do you remember?
November 1953.
1953. And you have been such a foundation for the community. So much respect to your family and for all you've done. So I appreciate your being here. As well as Mr. Cook, who we know delivered mail to us for so many years. Everybody was happy to see his smiling face. But Mr. Cook, as president, you probably served longer than anyone else as president, you think? Your presidency, how long were you president?
Well, I was president of the organization for 32 years. I was sitting watching TV when they called me and asked me if I would become president of the organization. And I told them, I said, well, I'll give it a shot. Well, I came on out and the organization was so inspiring to me until I put everything I could into it to develop it and make it a worthwhile organization and to help somebody. And And all one of my told one was always was if I could help somebody,
Yes, sir. Yes,
as
sir.
I go along this way,
Yes, sir.
then my living will not have been in vain.
Yes.
And I thank God that I was able to be of service to the community and to mankind.
Yeah, and your age is what now, Mr. Cook? How old are you now? How old are you?
He'll be 89 in September.
89. So sitting in this room, we have longevity and history and culture, and it's just all right here. And to me, that just means so much because we have so much to grow from.
Yes.
So much has been laid down for us. And I keep coming back to Mother Boston because in her prayers and in her teaching and in her Bible reading, and of course she shared with us in meetings, because that's the only way I knew her.
Right.
She would take a situation and she related to the Bible, and she would just have like a little sermon that would get us going and would keep us together. And it didn't take much for her to get happy.
No, it didn't.
Oh, the word was all she needed. And so when she got happy, and we know what got happy meant, that means she felt the religious spirit. When she felt that, we felt that.
Yes.
And she wasn't, when I met her, she wasn't a teenager.
No.
But it did not stop her from moving her feet and her arms and her legs and telling the story. So Miss Boston, your husband, who I adore much, followed in his mother's footsteps. When did he start preaching?
Oh, he started preaching. I can't remember the year, but he preached. And pastored the church in Pickens Temple in Old Town for about, I said around about 18 years.
Wow.
And he's 90 years old.
Wow.
And coming up, he'll be 91.
91.
And he was very dutiful in this organization also too. And he believed in the kids that going to school get education and also scholarships. This organization also gave kids scholarships when they usually when they send their registration back to us. Then we give scholarships.
And then Lillian, one thing about Marcus is that he was agriculture. He worked in agriculture for all of those years. He made sure that we knew that we were farmers, and he'd ask, "What are you growing this season?" And Mother Boston, as you said, was such a strong force. Her garden.
Yes, she's still.
And the garden plots are still there on the home site, but they don't look the way
They did.
they don't. No. Because we're maturing and they're maturing and they're not able to keep it in the same way. But there is a garden. There are greens. There are vegetables, and it's just amazing how Marcus
Also,
would
the
work.
tractor.
And the tractor, and the tractor, and just so many things that, and I wanted to go back to Uncle John, if I may.
You got
Talk
2
about,
minutes.
I'm just gonna ask him to you, talk about Annie Cook and what she did, and Julius Senior and what they did. They were farmers too, they had their,
All right. You want to talk about them?
talk about your mama and daddy,
My dad,
your dad.
my dad was the president of the organization for, I can't remember, for several years. And he was always, this was part of his heart.
Yes.
And he always had something good to say about somebody. And I enjoyed listening to him talking about this organization. And my mother was on the sick committee, and she would always go around checking on the members, see how their standards, and see how they're doing. She was a Christian-hearted woman, and that inspired us as children to grow up to be loving and to work together as a unit, loving one another and praying for one another. And that was our motto, to love and to help somebody.
And so now we've reached, this is our 100th year. I don't take that lightly, being able to say ours, because as Barbara mentioned, I am trying to come lately. And y'all just let me crawl in. But I have been on a high since the moment you said I could join.
Yes.
And I'm so glad you took me in at my old age and all of that, because I've been remembering now I'm 80 now. Can y'all believe that?
No.
But I've been here, maybe, I've been maybe 10, 15 years. So I'm young among some of this group. But the reason I say that is because what I found here was what Mr. Cook just mentioned. And what I found here was a group of people who were using our heritage to this very day, the way we lived it, and using it in today's society. So I want to know more about the programs, the things that we do. Maybe you'll talk a little bit more about what do we do still for each other and for the community.
Well, now we, on the scholarship, we have our prayer breakfast. August is like the third Saturday in every August of every year. We have a prayer breakfast. We get someone to speak. We try to have our praise dancers and the fellowship, someone come and talk a few minutes and inspiring words. Then we have, sometimes during election, we have officers to come out and they be campaigning stuff a bit. But it's to help raise funds for our children to go to school, because the education now is extremely expensive. Everybody just can't afford for their children, pay for their children to go. So whatever we can do to help a child, buy a book, pay some tuition or whatever that money is used for, they find in their heart to use it. And I know some of my cousins, they say when they get their check from Farmers Aid, they didn't blow it, they didn't spend it, they made it just for that purpose, what it was to be used for. And I thought that was, very interesting, because once, some children, they get money, oh, I just got me some extra money, but they just make sure they use that just for their school. And this year, we're planning on trying to do a dinner sale. We want to raise more money so we can at least give to our children to help them with education. We haven't planned the date yet that we're going to have that dinner sale, but in conjunction with the prayer breakfast, which is a fundraiser for that scholarship for our children. So we just want to pass the word out. We do sell tickets. The donation is $15 for each person. The last year was very good. We had this room packed. So we don't know, we'd be busting out the seam. We may have to have it somewhere larger if we get just that many people to come. So we just encourage, our students, we encourage younger people to come in and help out, like Vandy. And if you see younger people in an organization, maybe they are doing something. And then the ones that we have helped, we do get a response back from them and hope they will come back. A lot of them are away in school, and then we would like for them to help out also. When they come back home, they fit right in and do whatever they can to help out the organization.
And then along the scholarships, we do anniversary.
We do an anniversary program also.
Third Sunday in
On
September.
the third Sunday in September.
Okay, and then the name of the churches that are part of the organization are, name them again?
Greater Liberty Hill, 4 o'clock, and Second Morning Star.
Okay, so we all come
So
together.
we all come together because these are the people in this area where the organization was founded. So it's out near Jonesville area around 4 o'clock, which is over on 26, near the Boys Club on 51st and 55th, whatever street that is, down by Buell's, and background this organization. So these are the members and that founded it and started back then, so they're around in the same areas.
And we still have to remember that it's a whole area, so we have members from the Nebo area, members from Pleasant Plain United Methodist area, and our oldest, which is Jonesville. Our oldest member that I know right now is Miss Eunice.
Miss Eunice Myers. She just celebrated her 100th birthday party they had for her about a month ago. So I think she may be in Georgia at this particular time.
Talk a little bit about your mom and her contribution and her wonderful cooking. You know, it all comes together, but she's not here, and she's such a dynamic part in the office she has held in the organization.
My mother, Joan Boston Ferguson, she's the chaplain of the organization, and she's been a chaplain now for quite a few years. And she starts us off with a soul-stirring song and a prayer and devotion to get us all together for whatever you may have gone through that particular day. When you come on that Friday, third Friday of the month, and she sings and she prays, and that gets your mind in a frame of praising God, putting all aside all those other things that may have gone during the week. So she's very instrumental in prayer, and she's kept me grounded in prayer and doing what's right.
And kept us fed.
Yes.
Kept us fed.
Yeah, I was about to get to that. And she's very, very good cook. I don't know, some of you may know Junior's Restaurant. She was a cook there. She used to cook at the University of Florida, what they call the Ratskeller. And
Broward
the Ratskeller, and it was another one. Broward Hall. Also, they pastor over to By Faith, which we didn't know at a particular time. Then we started fellowshipping with them, Pastor Cord. And then he came and he just remembered, oh, Miss Ferguson, I remember how you used to give me food. You know, some of the students didn't have enough money, but she would let them, you know, get food, or either she would put a little bit more on their plate. And he was just so thankful, you know, after all those years that she left them out there, he still remembers things that she does. And she's a wonderful cook. She's still, now that she can't do it too much, and I'm kind of stepping up to the plate, helping out.
And
doing the cooking. Well, prayer breakfast and helping out.
And all of those are some of the pieces that have been so important.
Yeah.
That's going well, didn't she? So now, besides the scholarships, what else do we do to help members? I know we have some other things going on. Who wants to speak?
We do when a family, if there's a fire or for whatever reason, a family is in need of clothing, a shelter, whatever we can do, we're always there. Members of Farmers Aid are members of other organizations and work within their local churches, and so they represent when they go out. And if there's a need and you call and say that there's a need, they're going to do whatever they can do to assist that person. I personally have been the recipient of all the wonderful things, and just like we're sitting here now, they've sat many a day in my living room and had to bring their own chair because I didn't have enough for them to sit and to praise, sing, and all of the members. There's not a member here that has not done something for me personally in the hour of need. They're going to call you until they get to you. Or if they can't find you, they're going to find somebody to go and find you. And even now, Joan, as I said, still does that. She's still on that journey.
So
to make sure.
As we name the things, actually give them a name, we have scholarships. We have the committee that you're
Yes.
We give funds for hospitalization and every skin so long and those kind of things. And those things have significance. And they're significant because what? Who wants to talk about that? Why did we start doing those kind of things for people? Why do you think that was important back then? It had to be because
a helping organization, I would think, to just help wherever the need was.
And because maybe you couldn't get insurance as farmers to help each other out. And so it was my understanding that coming together and paying a little bit of dues would allow you to give a certain amount of money to somebody to help them with medicine. Or because they've been in the hospital for so long and those kind of things. And I think those are unique pieces. Tell me a little bit about the schoolhouse who knows, we're sitting here in the one-room schoolhouse. Mr. Cook, and Dad, both they all went to the one-room schoolhouse? You remember classes over there, going to school over there?
Yes, I did.
How many grades was in the room?
Oh, Lord. First, 2, 3, 6, 7, I believe.
Okay, yeah, your school, did you go to school out there?
You went to the schoolhouse, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, great. Want to tell us?
But it was red, painted red.
It was red?
It was red.
Right.
It was painted red at that time.
Okay, all right.
Tell us something about the school. How many grades, what grades did you attend?
Oh, we went from we had a primary grade on up to 6th grade. One room school. And we had we prepared food also in the school, in one section of the school.
Wow.
Before USDA lunches.
It was a one-room school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did everything.
But we fellowship together, and it went from primary to 6th grade.
Everybody listened.
What you said, Mr. Duncan?
Everybody heard, everybody.
That's right, so you could graduate from any grade.
My cousin here went to that school too. Maybe he can tell you a little something.
I have heard of many stories, Cousin Cook, about you and Granddaddy, and a student by the name of Bessie DeBose, who used to be the class clown. And she and Cousin Cook right here used to have a little bit of fun in school, didn't they?
That's right.
But my grandfather had talked a little bit about before we came out here, because this part of the conversation we were aware was going to take place. So Granddaddy, you wrote down some of your teachers, didn't you?
Oh, terrific.
Yes, we wrote down Ms. Rebecca Daniels,
Who happened to be my great-grandmother's mother.
Miss Ari Gainey, Louise Hale.
Oh, I remember Miss Hale.
Yes,
Louise Perry Hill.
So those were a few of your teachers.
Right.
Yeah.
Miss Ruth Lang, who she was an instructor there.
I remember Miss Lang from Lincoln Elementary School too. She was just about the meanest teacher I've ever
Yes,
seen.
she was. She sold paper. She sold loose cough drops. She sold cough drops and pencils.
Yes.
She was the meanest.
See, I'm much older than you, and if you remember, it had to be true.
That's an important thing to know. Some of the teachers
Upstairs.
Liberty Hill did go certainly
Did go
to
on
Lincoln.
over.
Louise Hale was another.
That she did. Went on over to Lincoln Middle School, Lincoln High. Lincoln High School was one building, but the bottom part of the school was elementary school. And once you were in 7th grade, because it was only elementary and high school, once you were in 7th grade, you could go upstairs. And that made you in high school. I never will forget the day that I arrived upstairs. That was certainly a big day, but I'm from a one-room schoolhouse background as well, because I was born in Trenton, Florida. And we had 1st through the 6th grade in one room. And my teacher was Miss Goff. To this very day, I can remember her. And so I never did go to 1st grade because I'd gone to a lady in our neighborhood who took all the kids in that weren't at school age. And she taught them and gave them cookies and all. So when I arrived in 1st grade, in the first 2 rows, I knew all the 1st grade stuff. My sister was in 2nd grade. So they moved me from the first 2 rows after the 2nd week over to the second 2 rows, and I was in the 2nd grade. And my sister never forgave me for that. She spent a whole year in the 1st grade. But the teaching was one teacher, and she just taught all across the spectrum. So when you were graduated, you knew it all. Like you said, you were learning it all along because you were hearing everybody's lesson.
He said we used to be so smart because we would hear all of it.
You could move
teaching all of the classes.
That's right.
You could be in 1st grade.
And a little bit about Louisiana Perry Hale is she taught here at the one-room schoolhouse.
Yes, and then-
she went to Lincoln High School,
Yeah.
and she was one of the teachers when they opened Buchholz High School in 1990.
And that's a history.
So that's a history. And the longevity of what they did and the impact when we talk about our saints. And they didn't just do a job and stop. That's right. They continued on, and we knew who they were because they came from within our community. And they had our best interests, and they made sure that you walked that tightrope.
That's right. That's right.
And you knew what
so
family
sure.
you came from too.
Go ahead.
You knew what family you came from.
Oh, yes.
So you dare not cut up when you
Dare
at school
not.
because it will beat you home.
Yeah.
You got, the news will get home before you got home, so.
Your mama's waiting on you. That's right.
All we had that was the behavior.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
Now, I've heard Granddaddy say too, now, would they sometimes, Granddaddy, make you go outside and get your six?
Mine, yes.
All right.
Yeah, and you better bring a good one, because if not,
They're gonna get one. And
and then I'll take two of them.
to plant them together.
I was my class clown.
That's a long,
I enjoyed
I
that.
can't see that.
Oh, yeah, I used to get trouble all the time.
long as you walk in here.
I see.
Still good.
But you know, they had fun and they learned, because I remember my dad, who, Collins and my father, same age, and good cousins and good community members together. And singing, Mac would tell me about them singing, bringing in the sheep. And then they added the names of the possums and the things that they oh yeah, you know, so yeah, when the teacher was doing the hymn and everything, but they were in the back cutting up and adding in the animals that they wanted, or that the animals that they saw as they were walking from 39th area back through the woods to get to the school. So yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna ask our young lady here sitting at the table what she thinks about all that. Did you know any of that? This is education for you?
Yes.
Well, you can listen to this part, but what we really want you to know is out of the park funny. No, all it does is show that in that era, that's the way we had fun, and it was innocent fun. It was not destructive. It was not bullying. It wasn't against anyone. It was the things that Mr. Duncan to this day remembers. Mr. Cook to this day remembers, because those are the things that drew us close together. So that's great. Now, tell me what you think about the organization, about what we do, baby. Because you come to the meeting and you're out.
She's a member.
Yeah.
Great.
I became a member 2 months ago.
Terrific.
2 months ago. I think of the organization, it's like bringing family together, because I see and meet people that I don't already know that's a part of my family. So it just brings us together, because I think right now we're trying to figure out our family tree, and it's just like branching everywhere.
And that's a good thing to know, where your roots are and where you belong. But what you do know is you have a solid background. You get all of that out of this room. Mr. White, can you tell us any more about the organization in terms of how many families you think are still active in the organization from a long way back?
I would say maybe 8 or 10,
Okay.
but it was a lot more
Yeah.
that time.
Yeah.
Because when I was a little boy, they didn't have all the transportation stuff we got now. All this was dirt roads. And my father, who had a little horse, because he, on a Friday, he'd get her and ride her to from up there from Nebo.
Oh,
We lived about a mile from Nebo Church in the woods over there. And then at that time, we didn't have no school buses. Most of the kids walked into school. And we walked 2 and 3 miles or more. And from here, when they got up to 2nd grade, they had to walk to Lincoln High School. They didn't have rides.
That's right, I understand.
And down through the years, God blessed us to come from nowhere. And then the farmers back at that time, I'm not saying it because I do it or have done it. When they raise crop, they'll go around and give it to the community. But now these people are all for themselves. And if you don't look out for yourself or try to help yourself, they're not Christianized. And we all worked hard to help each other, like they were saying. If this man needed help or this lady needed help, there was no begging, like I say. And it wasn't because now when you go to some people's house, I didn't invite them. They don't want you to the house. And therefore now that backs up a lot of fellowship thing, because people talk about it.
That's
And then we got a lot of people now, when they get ill, they don't want the family all to know they're ill. They're always selfish. But back then, they had like a community. We didn't have telephones, we didn't have CDs, we didn't have all this modern stuff, not texting. Now, the word went around in no time. And like you was growing up when we were small, you did something wrong. You didn't want it to beat you to the house, because somebody will tell you
Yes, yes.
what went down. And when you got home, yeah, you did someone, what?
You know already?
Yeah, then there were older people, they would build it up. And when they punish you, they'll let you go for a while. Then they'll start like a history. You know?
I hear that.
Send it to Sunday, send it to Monday, send what? And then they always start, they give you a lecture
Yes,
before they whoop you.
yes, but in between, in between is what I ate.
Yes.
Yeah, I knew my grandmother would whoop you on Sunday.
Yeah.
I never got a beat from her, but she wouldn't do my cousin. She did not do that on Sunday. She wait till Monday or Tuesday or whatever you think she might have forgotten, but she would get her.
Bring it down.
Yeah, but I can remember, we didn't have a farm, but I remember my mother, sitting around with bushels of peas, and the ladies would sit in the yard and shell peas in the evening. They'll do that like that. And I've never seen fingers move like that. I mean, their fingers were on automatic. They could do a pea shell. A pea shell, yeah. Now they do that, but did y'all do some of that?
Yes, yes.
And
Miss Johnson, probably think of us some input.
Oh, I'm enjoying what you all said, but my lifestyle was about the same as what's already been discussed. And I'll tell you the reason I want to be a member of the Farmers Aid. I first thought about the Farmers Aid. Farmers Aid, when I first came to this church. I said, what do you do? Eh? Farmers Aid? Farmers don't have. I had no idea that it was more than just farming. It was a community like helping each other. And so, and I really got more, as the longer I stayed, the more I got familiar with what was going on. And when gave the children a little $25, whatever it was, oh, it was $1 million. And I could remember my children got a little donation, and that meant a whole lot to them, and it meant a whole lot to me too. Just the thought, So my lifestyle was just about the same. I grew up in Brooklyn.
yes.
Nobody know about you.
Yes, we
Know
do.
about Brooklyn.
Yes.
Out in Brooklyn, Florida.
Yes.
That's where I grew up. Family members and sharing everything you all said.
Everything.
I did the same thing. We did the same thing.
And isn't that really what draws us all together?
Yes.
I know educators are in this room. I know that public service workers. I know the bankers. I know we have a little bit of everything in Farmers Aid. The branching out, the education. We have people who even support A&M over Bethune-Cookman. University. I can't imagine us in Boston. We do have these bosses who are always talking about A&M. And we talk about But we are an organization that promotes education.
Yes.
Because in our lifestyle, in our core, we've always said that is where we need to be. It doesn't mean that we're not farmers still at heart, and that core, that strong core, is not. We use that. We use at the Boston. I always talk about that because I think Reverend Boston is such an example of warmth, of giving, of thinking, and loves to tell each other.
Yes.
And he will get you in a heartbeat if you're not sharp. But I've always looked up to him. And the singing came out of that Boston family. Well, everybody sings, and it makes for a complete community. And so I think as we move into our millennium, what are some of the things you want to highlight? I'm asking the group, what is it out of our past that we want to highlight during our millennial celebration, where you want to be stellar, you want to be big? What do you think would make it really shine?
I'm making this jet. Listen at everything that's been said. And if you really put it into one thing, it's just grounded on the word. And every family, their parents, when you left home grounded.
Yes, yes,
Okay, train up a child in the way it should go.
yes.
I don't care how you stepped out of line, mama was, and I put an S on mama. Mama's or daddy's word will always come back and set you back in line.
Yes.
It doesn't make a difference, you know. Like when I left home, even if I stepped out of line, I looked behind me.
You see what
And I ain't away in Georgia in the military, I'm still looking around here because that word will always come back to us. And we were brought up to learn. We were brought up to learn how to farm because I had to come up. My mom would take us, we call it home. I mean, my mom was working Negro. And we had to work the field and I couldn't stand it, you know, but we had to do it, you know, crop tobacco, went over to Jonesville, pull peanuts for your grandma. But, I mean, you know, even though we pulled the peanuts, we couldn't wait for them to be boiled.
That's right.
You know, killing the hogs, I went through the whole shebang. Couldn't stand killing the hog, but I was waiting for them to stop. You know, everything, you know, was homemade.
Yes.
You know,
Best food.
and oh yeah, you know, and they would make it, you know, they would pick the coldest day ever. Kill the hog and stuff.
That's right.
That's the end result, you know. And right now we're looking right now, and I say the end result of what's going on right now. We never lacked anything.
No.
And this organization has been around for 100 years.
Yes.
And, you know, we're struck down a little bit, but it's still, we never lacked. You know, because of giving, give and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, shall man given to your bosom. So, you know, even though we give out, we're still giving in. Regardless of the faith. So I look at this organization as a well-grounded organization that's still building on the foundation that was laid. And we don't forget that foundation that was ever laid. And we use that to keep on because we know that one thing, God has our covered.
Yes.
And that's what it all boils down to. And we always, regardless of the fact, when we meet, we put him first.
That's right.
We don't start no kind of business, nothing, without putting him
Putting him
first.
first.
If I can piggyback on what Cuz is saying,
Yes.
if I had to choose a single word to encompass what I've heard from my grandfather over the years and what I've seen from the organization myself, it would be faith.
Yes.
Faith undergirded every single thing
Yes.
that this organization was founded on. Faith in God, faith in each other, faith in the community to withstand and continue to support each other in that. Everything began with God. It's why we can talk about the love and compassion that was shown at that one-room school right there. It's why we can talk about the spiritually uplifting and soul-stirring Sundays at this church right here, where it was never a problem for people to walk for however far they had to walk to get there. Never a problem for them to stay all day, and never a problem to come back to the 3:00 p.m. service, et cetera, et cetera. It was that faith, I believe, that laid that solid foundation that Cuz is talking about right now, and it's that same faith that I think has preserved this organization, and that's the faith that's going to take it prayerfully 100 years further. I can see something like this being sustained. And I get excited when I see my little cousin Sarah, she just joined.
She's so beautiful.
2 months ago. Because this type of community is something that could easily be lost.
Yes.
The history could be lost. The spirit could be lost. My cousin Wyatt just talked about how sometimes people don't even want you to come to their homes anymore. That is true. But it's that spirit that this organization really captured, you know, that love, that compassion, and now we need that more than ever. So my prayer is that this organization will continue to gain steam and that my little cousin right here will work with others, and who knows, maybe I'll throw my hat in the ring as well.
Maybe so,
And we can all work together.
Absolutely.
To bring that same sense of love, compassion, cohesion, working together, cooperative economics, which is something else that would be great to see happen, to really make some solid impact in our communities. We saw how our forefathers were able to do it. That helped to sustain a community through some very perilous and rough times.
And that's what I have to say is when Vivian talked and said we wanted to do this, I found a scripture just in my daily readings. It said, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." And I know that Cousin Joe, I know that Grandfather Cook, I know that Reverend Wyatt Dennis, and I know that, of course, my Boston family have not given up. And then there's just a little thought that says, not all rewards are immediate or visible, but I've seen them and I've grown. I didn't know the closeness of our families and our relationships and my father and your grandfather, except through Alberta. As I said, as an adult, because there were things that we didn't know or weren't able to get as we were growing up, but keep it together. So maybe Cousin Joe didn't see it, but look at what Cousin Collins, look at what Cousin Devin, look at my uncle, look at his son, look at his granddaughter. I mean, we are going on, and we're striving. Day by day. We're not going to give up. And the harvest, the Bible said, and I don't quote Bible, I'm not the minister, I'm not the singer either. My family has some singers too. I didn't get that gift. I got the chit-chat part. But if we continue, if we don't plant, we don't reap. And I think Farmers Aid, I think those founding, and I know that Mr. Wyatt and John L. and Collins all know the names, and at some point we need to record those names of the people that they remember, because they planted those seeds in us. And they might have grown up, the wheat and the tare, but guess what? The wheat has sustained. God has watered it, and He has kept us faithful, and we have to persevere and press on.
And I think that is so very, very important. I appreciate your comments. I appreciate yours. If we had to summarize and say where we are, I agree so wholeheartedly. We didn't get here by ourselves. But that's the essence of who we are. Started way back when we know about God. We know where our salvation comes from. And so that faith, it just draws us together. We can look at each other and know that we're on the same page because we've got the same kind of God in us. So I love that. And this organization has certainly always put God first. And I think that's going to continue to be the pushing, the layer that we sit on and stand on. That solid foundation. I want to just end, probably we'll talk about the families that still own their original land, because we know about gentrification. We know that part of this film, I usually say what I think, we know the white folk have bought off what we owned and treasured. They didn't pay much for it, but they have been millionaires from it, and we've lost. So how are we doing with holding on to what is ours and passing it on to who in our families and stuff? How do you feel about that?
Still on family property.
Still on family
still
property.
Still maintaining, still working.
Okay. Because I know all around us to cook. They're just all around us to cook. So,
you haven't been to Jonesville lately, Southwest 100.
Oh, I know. It's sickening. But here's what one of the goals I hope we hold on to is our land. One of the things I hope we hold on to is our land, because I live in a neighborhood around the museum, Copper Museum, and gentrification is just like this. And once I talked with one of the commissioners when we were doing the business about trying to get the land near Hawthorne, and he devised a plan that was going to take him on the Duval area, around in that area from University Avenue back to 8th, and he's looking at taking land there and doing something with it. Now I was so mad with him, sitting in his office. I said, so now you're looking at a plan that's going to take more land from black folk. and use it for something else. And I tell people I talk black because I am black. I woke up this morning feeling good and black. I plan on going to bed that way. And how would I say that? Because there's an impact that's being made on our lives that's different from any impact anywhere else. We are the core. What we're doing here is our salvation. It's what we want our young people to look back on and say, wow, they were dedicated to doing that. This is how they got there. I want to help to maintain that. So no matter where we go, faith brought us here. It's going to take us on. So I'm going to ask you if you have a closing remark you want to make. If so, I'm going to give you the opportunity to do that now. Okay, I can't believe Barbara didn't say something.
I was the last one to say something before you. I was writing down that thought because faith has brought us here and it will take us on. And so I just didn't want to forget that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say to Vivian, I would like to, for you to keep persevering with this and do something. And when if you give me the chore of reading the task of reading the questions, that keeps my mouth from talking, and I do want to be able to talk. No, but Jasmine and I talked to Iris and immediately, and I mean I went roundabout and I got in touch with her mom. Then she immediately got in touch with Desmond, and we just barely said yes to the time and the date. But we have so much to talk because Collins is quiet.
Yeah, yes.
And he is my calming spirit in me, and he knows my family and loved my father, and he loved him, and so we have
I've heard stories about your father from him,
and vice versa, and I can tell you, Moselle Henry stories are out there, and we talk about them, and so we've got, each of us has. I have homework to do. And I'm a writer. I can't, you saw me read the scripture. I know the scripture, I could say, but that's not my calling. And so I remember, and I've got to go back, I have a whole folder of programs, and I just showed Vivian a list of speakers of like 20 that I remember who have come through. But you know, when you try to put it all down and our lives are busy, you don't. So that's why I use the pen and paper. But I want us to move forward with this, and I do want to see us get something that we can share with the community commemorating this 100. And just the fact that we still have a member among us at age 100. And so just think, and I celebrate Collins. I'm living, my father is right there. I celebrate my uncle. My grandfather is right there. I celebrate my cousin, my auntie Evelyn, the wife of John, right there. I celebrate all of the Bostons, right there. I celebrate the Dennises. I celebrate Reverend Johnson and the entire Johnson family. I celebrate another Boston. Marcus taught me Spanish when we reached high school. Every time we saw him, as you said, he was a comedian, but he knew that I was in Spanish, and he just, and you better be quick. You couldn't be thinking about it or trying to figure it out, just like our multiplication tables. We knew them. You had to respond immediately, be ye also ready. And that's how he kept us sharp. And he has done that. And even through my professional career, Vanny is keeping me alive and well. She asks questions. She and Sophia want to know her older sister, want to know our history. We started this years ago. As I'm cleaning now, I'm finding the history that we have written, gave it back to Sophia and said, okay, we need to go forward. Because what we found when we started to do the cook, then we had to do the haze. Because you can't do one without the other. And that's a lot of work, a lot of time. I know that I'm speaking to the choir with the two around it, but there's just so much work to be done.
There is. You mentioned, I'm sorry, I'm not going to
No, I'm done.
But you mentioned something, Ms. Filer, that is a project that we've started working on, and perhaps we can work together on it. The idea of the land.
Yeah,
There's much to be said about it and how it was acquired.
yeah,
My grandfather has shared with us
Yeah.
how our hundreds of
Yeah.
acres were
Yeah.
acquired.
Yeah.
And how several of them were dispersed.
oh, I do know,
Okay.
there's a story.
And so it's interesting to parallel that because Granddaddy, didn't you say Papa sold a lot of that land to make sure that y'all had education?
Yes.
You know, so
Yes.
the idea that education was something that was
Yes.
important, so you sell off pieces of your land.
Yes.
And you're absolutely right, not nearly at the value that would have been best for everybody knows where Robbins Lane is.
Mhm.
That was
Yes, yes.
and that was sold to Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
And had
I
we
got
done it
another
right, I
story
wouldn't be
about
working where I'm working.
Another story. Wayne Robinson.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But this is a history that it would
We
be so
needed that.
wonderful,
We
you know,
do.
and I can see this organization
Coming in with that.
forming some
I'd like to
interesting
suggest
initiatives.
this one thing,
Yes, sir.
that we've come this far by faith, leaning on the Lord.
We're gonna sing it.
And you know, He brought us a long way.
Yes.
We've come. And we're still together.
Yes.
And you know, without the help of the Lord, we'll still be together.
Yes, we will.
Unity,
Yes.
togetherness,
Yes,
love for one mankind.
yes.
Yes.
I think you've said it. I think you've said it. And we're going to follow this with a session on pictures. Barbara has spoken about that and with Ryan, and we'll do that. After we close, if someone feels that we need to go further, Mr. President, in terms of individual testimonies, we can do that. We're certainly going to get to view this and figure out how we're going to use it. We have the right to eliminate anything we want to when we see it, and we can do anything and crapping and cutting of it that we want, and we sort of appreciate that so very much. So to me, this has been top of the line experience for me today. I love history. I love knowing history because it always makes me grow and get richer. It's better than money because this is who I am. So it's so important that not only I know it, but I share it. Aquin Jones Center shares it.
Amen.
We want to share it at the Cutco Museum. You all share it just by being who you are, but you're going to share it now through what we're doing today. It's not going to just be piecemeal, because I've heard more today about how we began and what it all means than I ever knew. And you know me, I want to know about it because I feel really fortunate to be a part of that. So as we always do, we've had a scripture. And now we're going to close this session with, we'll come to Sorrow Faith. And my sorrow, Barbara promised she would not lead it. So would you please start us out? We'll just do one verse of this, and that will be our closing. Okay, we've come.
We come this far by faith, leaning on the Lord, trusting in His holy word. He's never failed me yet. Oh, can't turn around. We come this far by faith.
Thank you. That sounds so good.
That's it.
Oh, thank you. You all are.
So that makes me stop looking at that spirit. Mother Boston is so proud of us. Yes.
She is.